The Avro Vulcan was undoubtedly one of the most beautiful giant birds in the skies. This extraordinary strategic bomber aircraft was an essential element of nuclear deterrence of the UK for many years, alongside the other V bombers, the Vickers Valiant and Handley Page Victor. Today, we're investigating the Vulcan, the British god of fire and destruction. The Vulcan, named after the Roman god of fire and destruction, was a symbol of the response of the Brits to the new atom and jet era. With its elegant look, the strategic bomber has always been one of the most beloved to the military aviation enthusiasts. The Vulcan was best in its class when it emerged. It surpassed the Soviet Tu-16 and the US B-47 in practical ceiling and range. When the Iron Curtain was being descended across Europe, the story of the Vulcan began. The atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki ushered in the New Age. And now, the era of jets had already begun. So, in 1947, London initiated two related research and development programs for atomic weapons and the jet bombers that would deliver them. 6 British aviation companies submitted technical brochures for this requirement. Unlike their rivals, who offered more conventional aircraft, two companies, Avro and Handley Page, preferred innovative approaches. Handley Page's HB-80 had crescent wings. The Avro 698 was a tailless delta-wing jet bomber. However, this wing design was still an uncharted territory. Even though Avro's offer looked like the best option on paper, it was too risky. The Royal Air Force had thought so and first awarded Handley Page a prototype contract in November 1947. Still, Avro got an order to construct 2 prototypes in January 1948. 3 months later, the Royal Air Force also awarded Vickers another prototype contract for its Type 660, which had a more conventional design. Avro had to gather sufficient information about the delta wing design first. So the company began to work on 2 smaller experimental aircraft. The 707, the 1/3 scale model of the 698, was developed to research low-speed handling features of the delta wing design. The second experimental aircraft, the 710, the 1/2 scale model of the 698, would be created to discover high-speed handling characteristics. But it was cancelled later due to time limitations. Instead of the 710, Avro produced the 707A, the high-speed variant of the 707. The 707 made its maiden flight in September 1949 but crashed later. Due to delays caused by all these misfortunes and decision changes, these experimental aircraft had little contribution to the 698's development. Still, they gave Avro confidence in the delta wing design. The actual base information came from the wind tunnel tests. However, Avro had gained them too late and had to build the first 2 698 prototypes without using the newly acquired knowledge. Also, the first 3 serial-produced Vulcans would not have the necessary modifications on their wings before their first flights. They would be retrofitted later. So, the first 698 prototype, with its pure delta wing, made its maiden flight on August 30, 1952. Since the intended Bristol Olympus turbojets were not ready, it had been fitted with 4 29 kN Rolls-Royce RA3 Avons. The second prototype was later fitted with 4 49 kN Olympus Mark 101s. The first production Vulcan, a B.1 variant, met the skies for the first time in February 1955. The aircraft was introduced to the Royal Air Force Service in 1956. The Vulcan was one of the 3 horsemen of the UK's nuclear apocalypse threat. The Royal Air Force also took the Handley Page's HB-80 as the Victor and the Vickers Type 660 as the Valiant into the service. Avro, later Hawker Siddeley, produced 136 Vulcans, including the 2 prototypes. The aircraft was made of mainly standard grades of light alloy. On the other hand, the most highly stressed parts were strengthened. Even though it was not intended during the design phase, the Vulcan had a significantly low radar cross-section, especially at certain angles. Only some components, like the big tail, disturbs the aircraft's stealth. The first 15 Vulcan B.1s had the Olympus Mark 101 turbojets. follow-on aircraft delivered in 1957 powered by the 52 kN Olympus Mark 102s. All B-1s were later re-engined with the 60 kN Olympus Mark 104 during overhaul. The aircraft had 14 back fuel tanks, 4 in the center fuselage above and to the rear of the nose wheel bay, and 5 in each outer wing. Electric timers which sequenced the booster pumps on the tanks automatically maintained the center of gravity. Thanks to its delta wing, the aircraft had an extended bombing mission range in low-altitude attacks than the other two V-bombers. However, due to the large wing area, the barometric altimeter of the early Vulcans malfunctioned at very low altitudes where the ground effect occurred, causing some accidents. They were fitted with a new radar altimeter later to solve the problem. The two-level crew cabin was pressurized. The pilot and co-pilot sat on the top and had the Martin Baker 3K ejection seats. The bomb aimer, navigator, and air electronics officer were at the lower level. They had to abandon the aircraft via the entrance door in case of an incident. The rear visibility of the cockpit was highly limited, so the crew had to use dedicated displays and television monitors to check the status of the rudder and elevons. Besides, the air electronics officer had a periscope to watch the bomb bay doors and below. The Vulcan B.1s relied on its high speed and high altitude flight capabilities against interceptors and anti-aircraft guns. The Vulcan B.1 variant had a length of 29.59 meters, a wingspan of 30.3 meters, and a height of 8.08 meters. Its wing area was 330.2 square meters. The aircraft's empty weight was over 37,900 kilograms, while its maximum takeoff weight was over 77,110 kilograms. Four 60 kN Bristol Olympus Mark 104 turbojets provided a top speed of Mach 0.96. The Vulcan B.1 had a range of 4,195 kilometers. Its service ceiling was 17,000 meters, in other words, 56,000 feet. The aircraft could carry up to 21 conventional free-fall bombs or one nuclear bomb, like the Blue Danube, Violet Club, Yellow Sun, Redbeard, Mark V, and WE-177B. Due to the increased effectiveness of the Soviet surface-to-air missiles, 28 Vulcan B-1s were later fitted with electronic countermeasure equipment in the early 1960s. They also received in-flight refueling equipment and UHF radio. These aircraft were designated as Vulcan B-1A. However, since their structure was not strong enough for low-level operations, the Royal Air Force retired them by 1968. The Vulcan B-2 variant, introduced in 1960, had a suitable strengthened design for low-level operations. It had a length of 32.16 meters, a wingspan of 33.83 meters, and a height of 8.26 meters with a maximum takeoff weight of 93,000 kilograms. The Vulcan B-2 could carry the Blue Steel Mark 1 with a 1.1 megaton yield. This standoff nuclear missile had a 240-kilometer range and a Mach 2.3 speed. The UK intended to replace the Blue Steel Mark 1 with its Mark II version or the US GIM-87 Skybolt missiles, but these plans were cancelled later. The electrical system of the Vulcan B-2, which had the electronic countermeasure system since the beginning, was also improved. This variant had 4 more powerful 76 kN Olympus Mark 201 turbojets and in-flight refueling capability. The later Vulcan B-2s were equipped with 89 kN Olympus Mark 301s. This variant was continuously updated with modifications and received a rapid engine starting system, bomb bay fuel tanks, strengthened wings, upgraded navigation equipment, terrain following radar, and improved electronic countermeasure equipment. In 1973, 9 Vulcan B-2s were converted to maritime reconnaissance aircraft. Redesignated as the Vulcan B-2 MRR, they were fitted with the H-2S radar and the Lorentz radio navigation aid. The Vulcan B-2 MRR had no strike capability. In a possible war, they would detect the targets over the GI-UK gap and direct the Buccaneers on them for maritime strike missions. 6 Vulcan B-2s were converted to the tanker configuration for aerial refueling in 1982. Redesignated as the Vulcan K-2, They were fitted with an additional cylindrical bomb bay tank and the Mark 17 hose drum unit. Vulcan pilots, bomb aimers, and navigators were selected from those with experience in the Canberra bombers. Their proficiency training took 3 months, during which time it was necessary to complete 14 flights, including night flights and long-range flights, flying a total of 55 hours. Just after the Royal Air Force received its first Vulcan B.1s, it sent the aircraft on a round-the-world tour to demonstrate its capabilities. These tours, symbolizing the UK's military protection capabilities for the Commonwealth countries, continued during the Vulcan's service time. Vulcans participated in numerous tests of NORAD and simulated possible Soviet air attacks on North America. In one exercise conducted in 1974, the aircraft managed to avoid US Air Force interceptors. During the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, alongside the Victor and Valiant, the Vulcan got too close to fulfilling its creation purpose, being a part of the nuclear apocalypse. Thankfully, the world woke up from this nightmare after the USSR agreed to remove its nuclear missiles from Cuba. The Royal Navy began to commission the Resolution-class Polaris submarines in 1967. The Blue Steel missile was taken out of service in 1970. So, the Vulcan was no longer the primary weapon system to deliver nuclear destruction to the USSR. Still, the aircraft continued its tactical nuclear strike role as a part of the British contribution to Europe's standing NATO forces. Thankfully, the Vulcan gained combat experience only in a conventional bombing role. During the Falklands War, the Vulcan bombed the Argentinian positions on the Falkland Islands. In the mission, called Operation Black Buck, each aircraft flew 6,259 kilometers from Ascension Island, refueling from Victor tanker to reach its targets. At the time, they were the world's longest-distance raids. On May 1, 1982, a single Vulcan bombed the airfield in Port Stanley. The damage was insufficient. The Argentine Pucaras and C-130s kept using the airstrip until the last day of the war. On June 3, 1982, a Vulcan B-2 carrying an AN/ALQ-101 electronic countermeasure pod and Shrike anti-radar missiles attacked Argentinian radar sites at the airfield. The Brits had preferred the US-made Shrike since trials had proven the domestic model, developed for low-altitude strikes, was unsuitable for high-altitude launching. One anti-radar missile damaged the air control radar's antenna, temporarily putting it out of action. However, the Argentine technicians managed to repair it within 2 days. Still, the other missile destroyed the Skyguard air defense radar. During its return journey, the Vulcan B-2 broke its refueling probe and had to land at Galeão Air Force Base in Brazil. 2 years after the Falklands War, the Royal Air Force retired the Vulcan and replaced them with the Tornadoes. One Vulcan continued to perform display flights until 2015. The British jet aircraft designs are generally ugly as hell, but heavenly charming. The Vulcan was one of the exceptions. It was definitely an angel of the apocalypse with its beauty and the sword of judgment. This bomber served the crown well and has gained the hearts of military aviation enthusiasts. The Vulcan is undoubtedly a legend. Thanks for watching our video. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the bell button to be notified of our new videos. Also, you can now click the join button to support our channel. And as always, we would greatly appreciate all of your likes, comments, and shares.